Okay, I think we're going live. So yeah, I can see participants coming in. That's quick, isn't it? Always surprises me how fast that works. But so first few people in, welcome everybody to the latest in our series of Meet the Dons Trust Board sessions. My name's Graham Stacey. I'm here to introduce tonight's hosts, let you know a bit about how tonight works, and blabber on a bit while people arrive. We're expecting quite a big crowd tonight. I think that's probably our biggest to date if everyone turns up. So well done to Xav and Jane, who are the newly elected Dons Trust Board co-chairs. So they're the hosts for this evening. I think it's fair to say it's quite an exciting time for the Dons Trust Board. We've got things you're going to hear about tonight, including governance and strategy reviews underway. I think there's going to be plenty of questions have been sent in already, plenty you will be able to ask on the night. Thanks to everyone who did send their questions over in advance. We've collated those, so we're going to answer as many as we possibly can, as fully as we possibly can over the course of the next hour or so. I can see we've got about 76 or so are in, so I'll keep talking for a little bit more, come on to a few house rules and so forth. So, oh, and just to tell you, it's not just Jane and Xavier who are here tonight. They are hosting, but we've got a couple of special guests as well. That's Michael Hamilton, who is the club academy manager, and Rick Thomas, the club's volunteer. I've got another guest in here, I think, volunteer liaison officer. So do send in your questions for those two as well. We've just launched the Dons Maker, codenamed Dons Maker Initiative, and so there'll be plenty of questions about that, I'm sure. And well, we all know the success of the academy providing a steady stream of players to the first team. So I'm sure there'll be lots to ask Michael as well. So just before I introduce Xavier and Jane properly, there's about 81 of us in now. So just a few house rules. So as I said, people have sent in advanced questions, which we've collated and we'll get through over the next hour or so. If you do want to ask questions live as we go, you can. There are a couple of icons probably at the bottom of your screen, depending if you're a Mac or PC, I think. There's one that's Q&A. So if you want to ask a question of Jane, Xav, Rick, or Michael, please use the Q&A box. There is also a box at the bottom which is labelled chat. So if anyone wants to discuss answers and that kind of thing, please do so in the chat box. Q&A, just to reiterate, please keep that just for questions to our hosts. It just means we can get to them and we won't be drowned. So, please be polite as well. I always like to get this in. This is going to be recorded and will be available initially to pro boards to members. So no swears, keep it nice, and it should be a nice evening. Hannah is here behind the scenes, and so is George. So thanks to both of those, George Jones and Hannah Kitcher. We'll be monitoring questions, and you know, if we can answer them directly to our website and so forth, we'll do that as we go. And I think that's a lot of people in very quickly. So obviously, you're quite a draw, Jane and Xav. And I think that's probably all the house rules, and probably time to get started. So we've got quite a lot to get through. Over to you, Jane and Xavier. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, Graham.
Evening, everybody. So we'll probably just kick off with just a bit of a chat between Xav and I. Although Xav has just disappeared from my screen, so I'm hoping you're still there. So I've been on the board sort of this will be my 8th year on the board, and I thought I'd just have to do a bit of a quick reflection on, you know, how the things that we've done and how much we have done and the state we're in at the moment, but also to kind of reflect with Xav about how he's found it. I mean, he's been on the board six weeks, is it, Xav, since I mean, it seems much longer than that, but
yeah, it does feel longer, but yeah, it's about that, isn't it?
It's about 6 weeks since the elections. And for me, I mean, I've sat with lots of different boards. I mean, it feels like there's a huge amount of enthusiasm, a huge amount of people pulling in the same direction, not just the board, but with, you know, wider fans as well. You know, how's it been for you in the first 6 weeks? How is it, you know, we could probably talk about how we've become co-chairs and things as well.
Yeah, so I never really wanted to be on the board. I stood a few years ago, loads and loads of years ago, and a few months ago I wasn't really up for being on it. I felt that I was more of a campaigner than kind of someone to get stuck into the nitty gritty of the board. But then I felt that I gradually felt that maybe I could do it, and maybe I would enjoy it. And I've got to say, so far I'm really enjoying it. I think we're at an interesting time. I think it's an excellent board, but I think the talent around us and the enthusiasm around the board and from the membership and from other people at the football club is really considerable. I think there are so many things, so many different groups that people are working on at the moment, with lots of involvement from lots of people, and we'll go more into that later as to what is going on. But I think it's a really good time. I think I'm very lucky to be on the board at a time like this, with clearly with Plough Lane, but with us able to write the next chapters of this football club through the reviews that we're doing and things. So yeah, I went from not really wanting to be on it to really enjoying it. And you know, I think the best thing is I look forward to the meetings. I look forward to the conversations. And yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of time, but I'm in a different position to some people. I don't work that hard currently, unfortunately, in my day job. So I've got time to give it, and no, it's great. Really looking forward to the next few months.
Can't work out whether I'm on mute or not. Am I mute?
No.
No, good. That's gone as well. There's something wrong with my laptop, clearly. And so we've set our priorities, and I think we should probably just talk about those for a little bit, about what the board has decided. We did that really quite quickly. So we would normally do that at the first January meeting, which is towards the end of January. We decided that we were going to do that much quicker, and had a meeting in the first week of January, actually. And the board all agreed on the priorities. So there's kind of four main strands, I suppose. There's the strategy of, you know, what do we, the owners of the club, and when I talk about we, I'm talking about the Dons Trust as a whole, want our club to be. What are the things that we want it to be? We had a vision a long time ago that was play in Merton, go back to Wimbledon, be in the league, and we've achieved all those things, amazingly, but also brilliantly. We've achieved all those things, and so we need to reset that. Zav's leading that piece of work. We're looking at the structure of how, as a football club, we operate, both different board structures, and that's kind of evolved over time, and I think everybody agrees it's just not fit for purpose as it is right now. It was probably fine when we were, a long league club in 2002, 2003, but how many years later, it's creaking at the seams, and there's also a lot of duplication that we need to deal with, and we've had a question on that, actually, so we'll come to that very shortly. And then there's the fact that we've got a huge amount of debt to do with the stadium around us. So there's a refinancing committee that's been set up that Ed Leake is chairing, and that's looking at refinancing and how, becoming a much more sustainable operation. And then there's also Zav and I's and the rest of the board's oversight of the football club and the operations of it. Zav, do you want to say a bit about the strategy and how you think that's going to work?
Yeah, definitely. So as Jane said, our aims are outdated. So we need to do a few things. We've got to come up with our big aims. They might be football aims, commercial aims. In fact, we've broken the strategy review down into 6 areas. So ethos is one of them. Who do we want to be? How do we want to be different? What does being Wimbledon mean? Football, clearly, we're looking at looking at what we want to achieve on the pitch, and across the football side of the club. Commercial things like, you know, would we just get as much revenue as possible without caring too much about where that money's coming from. Then community. So what do we want to be? I know what I want us to be. I want us to be the best community club in England. But it's not about what I want or what Jane wants. It's about what all of the stakeholders of the club want, including the members, the fans, people who work at the club, the community itself. So community is one of them. One club is one of the parts of the strategy review. So looking at how all the different parts of the club can interact and how we can share good practice, how pluck something out of the air, how you know, one of our first teamers could run a couple of sessions with the under-14s. You know, how do we bring the ladies and girls section closer to the heart of everything? And so we'll be looking at that. And then ambassadorial. So probably the one-liner for that is how, you know, do we want to be Andy Holt on steroids? The Accrington owner. You know, do we take our position as leaders, thought leaders on things seriously? If Project Big Picture gets talked about, should we have a view on it, and should we push our view? So we're looking. So the strategy review is really in two main parts. So the first part is working out all of the questions and things we want to find out under those 6 headings. That gets fed into the research team. The research team will make sure that we're asking those questions, be it by surveys or be it through focus groups, that we're asking them in a way that is fair and right and not leading. And then the second part of it is getting all those results back, collating them, turning them into the aims and mission for the football club, putting proper objectives, measurable objectives next to the various strands under those 6 headings, and then getting the Dons Trust board to ratify it, and then presenting that strategy to the board, to the football club board, for them to go and create the plan and deliver it. And then we hopefully become the oversight board that we should be. So with a bit less doing and a bit more oversight. So it's a great piece of work. It really is. I mean, I was thinking about this earlier. We've got, you know, clubs everywhere. No other clubs really get an opportunity to shape who they are. You know, largely it's rich owners, individual owners, or a couple of them, and they decide what they want the strategy to be. We're on the next leg of the journey, and we've all got an opportunity to be really involved in it, and that's hugely exciting. You know, we've done amazingly well so far, but now for us, for the people that have fought so many battles and won them and overcome them, to now be able to create the next few years and the strategy to a realistic strategy. You know, we can dream a bit, but we have to be realistic, and there are trade-offs for all that we want to achieve. But yeah, it's a really good piece of work, and I'm
So there's a question coming actually, Zav, on it from Matt Cooper, which just says, with the strategy, what aims, headings take priority, as there will be some conflicts with regards to allocating time and resources. Now, my understanding is that all of these things are happening concurrently, because we've just advertised for a whole load of people, volunteers, to help with this, right? Yeah, and that we've got such a short time frame. The aspirations to turn this around incredibly quickly.
Yeah, we're trying to turn it around during the first quarter of this year, so by the end of March. And one of the drivers for that is really if we're to go out and talk to lenders about refinancing, and it's not one lot of refinancing, it will likely be several rounds of refinancing over the next few years. We've got to have a plan. We've got to show lenders, you know, for example, where we see our ambition on the pitch, where we see our commercial aspirations, and they need to go and speak to lenders properly. They need a while to do that. So we're giving them a long time, hopefully, by getting this done by the end of March. In terms of the priorities, Matt, within those, so we've actually got somebody who is a strategy coordinator who, and I think it's a secret, it's Matt Breach, and he works for an engineering firm, and the best way we described it is, let's say his firm makes trains. Some people will want really fast trains, some people will want really comfortable trains, some people will want really cheap trains, and some people will want really energy efficient trains. And what Matt will do is he will make sure that no leader, no group, none of the 6 threads are going off in a crazy direction that's totally at odds with the other group. So there's that sort of role involved. There's also a validation of our methods, making sure that this is a fair process and this is the right process, because it's really important. As I say, I'm fairly strong-minded about what I'd like to see, but it's largely irrelevant. This is about asking about everybody else what their views are. So yeah, that's how we're planning to coordinate it all.
And we just, as part of that sort of preamble, we talked about the structural review as well, which is kind of the wider organisation. We had a question in from Graham Price in advance, which is asking that currently the DTB notionally liaises with the FCB. As we move to a new 2-board structure, how do you see the liaison between the DTB and the reconstituted operating board working at a high level? And I think there's a couple of things to say here first. So there is a structural review, and Charlie will be leading that, and that will be undertaken at the same time as the strategy review. And of course, they will both, there's interlinks between both of them, so they'll work closely together. But I think we need to, again, we don't want to preempt anything. And so whilst there was talk of 2 boards within the Imperial College work, and we've heard other people talk about 2 boards, that isn't a decision that's been taken yet. It's certainly on the table, but it's not a decision that's been taken. And what those roles will be hasn't been determined either, because actually there needs to be real clear lines of sight between the boards, and there needs to not be a duplication of work. We need to get the best out of the people that are on those boards, and we all need to be pulling in the same direction. And so again, the review, it will include a consultation with lots of stakeholders, and include the work that's already been undertaken, so the Imperial College report and stuff. But as I said, I think in the preamble, we all completely agree the current structure does not work. I see Joe having to present to different boards the same thing at different times, and different papers having to be tweaked slightly for different boards, and it just doesn't, from a governance point of view, it just doesn't make much sense. And then there's the wider, how does the foundation, how does the academy, how does DLAG, how does WISH all fit into that structure? And what are the reporting lines? So it's a big piece of work. Charlie's leading on that. But yeah, that's kind of my answer. Anything to add, Zav?
No, not really. Just there was a post yesterday or the day before, seeing if anyone else who hasn't put themselves forward to be involved in the strategy review wants to. There's still some scope for people to get involved. So yeah, please do get in touch if you'd like to, and probably sooner the better, because we're right in the middle of the work now.
I'm conscious that we've invited Michael and Rick along. I think it'd be good to turn to one of those. Do we want to do? So I think Michael's got a bit of a presentation for us, and is happy to take some questions and stuff. So everybody, please welcome Michael Hamilton, who's the head of the Academy, does fantastic work with the Academy. Michael, shall I just pass to you and you can talk us through your slides?
Sure, thank you, Jane, and thank you, Xavier, for the invite today. The purpose of the slide is to support some of the questions that may come, and I understand, unless you're in the academy world, it can be quite confusing. So I just want to try and give everyone a little bit more of an insight into the academy world. It might answer some questions that might come up, and yeah, if there's any questions along the way, please please feel free to ask them. Can you just give me a thumbs up to confirm you can see the slides? Brilliant. So, I'm not sure what everyone knows, so I'll just start with like a fool's guide. In 1996, the FA looked at the youth provision in the UK, and they decided to introduce Centre of Excellencies, and that's evolved to academies. At the moment, there are 4 categories, and a category isn't deemed by league status, but by financial contribution from the club. So I'll give you guys a few seconds just to take on board the information in front of you. To give you an example of a Cat 1 academy, Sunderland are a Cat 1 academy, but obviously are a League 1 club. So league status has no bearings at all on a category. It's the financial contribution from our club. The budget, which you see in front of you, is a rough estimate, but it's important to highlight that this isn't club funded. You do get part funded by the EFL from the Premier League to run a youth development program. And the main requirements are there on the right-hand side. How our program runs is all our schoolboys. So to me, when I say schoolboys, I mean from under 9s all the way up to under 18s. We will play category 3 academies in our region. And those teams include Luton, Peterborough, Oxford. But what the program allows you to do over the course of the season is to fit in your own game. So Xavier, you was down a few weeks ago, you watched us play Derby, we played Chelsea, Arsenal, QPR, Fulham. Even a couple of years ago, we took our under-18s out to Spain and we played Atletico Madrid. So we're not restricted to our games program. There's a bit of flexibility in it, but in terms of a formal games program, they tend to be regionalised with the flexibility to play other academies. As you can see there, the requirements are quite huge in terms of the difference between a Cat 1 and a Cat 3. The training hours and the development provision needed from each academy, as you can see, you know, it is quite a lot. But again, it's all down to financial contribution. So what is the purpose of us? You know, what is the purpose of the academy? And fundamentally, it's to produce players for the first team or to bring in some financial value. So how do we measure that? Well, every 3 years, the EFL or the Premier League, they collect information from all the academies, from all the playing data across the whole country. And in front of you is the latest productivity measure. The latest one was in 2019. So the next one will be June 2022. It's important to highlight, again, going back, AFC Wimbledon they weren't a professional academy until 2011. So everything you see in front of us here is, you know, the best part of 7, 8, maybe 9 years worth of data. Bear in mind, the last 2 years don't count. So we're up against academies who have been running since 1996. Yeah, you're talking about 15, 20 years. The latest data shows that we are the 34th most productive academy in the country, and this is out of all 92 professional football league clubs, including Premier League. 22nd out of all EFL, so 22nd out of 72, and 8th in all category 3 against all category 3 clubs. I've still got a bit of research to do in terms of trying to identify who 1 to 7 are, but that graph in front of us shows the growth that we've taken over in the last 12, 9, 6, 3 years. Bear in mind, 12 years ago, when this was collated, AFC Wimbledon only had been an academy for 1 year. So at the time, there was a lot of discussions in regards to who should take the measurements from Wimbledon FC's academy, because obviously, you know, due to the ownership issues and stuff, there was a bit of a battle at the time. Like I said, we compared against every club in the country, and what it doesn't include is performance data from 2019 up until now. And like I said, the next report isn't due to 2022. So there's quite a lot of information there, quite a lot of playing data in front of us that still has to be recognised. So as an example, Luton at some stage, when they got their productivity measure, they would still be getting scores or points for Jack Wilshere. Maddison's another one, currently scoring goals and doing well in the Premiership for Leicester, but Coventry City will be accumulating points for him. Now, to give you a little bit more context, if you're playing in the Premiership, as an example, the scores or the points awarded obviously mean more than if you're playing in League Two. So if you've got someone in the Premiership, obviously your score is it's gonna progress a lot quicker if you've got players playing League One, League Two. But kind of like what I said, we've been at a bit of a disadvantage because we are compared against clubs with 5, 10, 15 years of extra development time. So I thought this would be interesting, and it kind of, what next? What do we need to do to get more academy players in the first team? And I just wanted to give you a little bit of context, because if there's not academy in world football who produces players at 17, 18 that is ready for the first team, you do get your odd ones. You get your Marcus Rashfords, your Marcus Greenwoods, your Saka at Arsenal at the moment. But I wanted to give you a bit of data just to give you a little bit more of an understanding of where we sit. So obviously you've got 2 player profiles in front of you with Davies Charles and Lyle Taylor. And what is quite easy to read is, before they got into the Football League, there was a lot of failure. There's a lot of experience. There's a lot of ups. There's a lot of downs. And it's the journey, but it's the journey collated that gets them to where they are. Lyle Taylor, the same. Funny enough, I used to work at Millwall, and Lyle was coming through at the time, and he had just been released by Millwall. Got released, went and played non-league. Didn't quite work out for him here. He had a few appearances, didn't quite work out, went over to Scotland, but then he's re-entered the system at 24, 25. And that age is important because we feel we have talent, and we feel we've always got talent, and we feel we've got some talent coming up. But the biggest issue, I say issue, the biggest battle we have as an academy is just getting, the club or the first team to be patient. And this isn't an AFC Wimbledon angle. This is youth development across the whole country. So down here, you've got, I'll give you a couple of examples. So Mason Mount's obviously broke into the England side in the last year or so, and before that broke into Chelsea. But he was 20 before he had done so, and he had accumulated 86 worth of senior games before he broke into Chelsea. Tammy Abrahams, he made his debut at 18, but then he went away on loan, and he got 127 games worth of experience before he broke into Chelsea. And it's that experience and that development which our boys have missed in the past, and we've tried to rectify that in the last couple of years with the loans program. And we're a year and a half into that. Mark Robinson oversees that. This year's been very difficult because of COVID and non-league, coming to a standstill. But from an academy perspective, that image there of what success looks like and what people think it looks like, we really try and almost work and be patient and work towards that muddled bit. We really try and get boys to understand that there will be ups, there will be downs, but you won't be ready at 18. You might not be ready at 19. You might not be ready till 20, 21. And everyone's journey is different. And you can see there, there's in the Leicester City fixture, you got Jamie Vardy and Harry Kane on the bench, which is quite crazy to think about. But at that time, for Leicester City, they weren't ready. They were on their journey. So I just wanted to give you that bit of information, because I think sometimes we can get lost with a academy player making his debut. And listen, none of us are blind. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there's going to be good performances, there's going to be bad performances, but they're almost learning on the job. And like I said, the biggest battle we have as an academy, and the biggest battle probably the youth development in this country have, is just recognizing, especially when 3 points are on the table, jobs are effectively on the table, promotion and relegation on the table, is with young players just to be patient, because some won't make it, some do have their ceiling, but some with a little bit more patience, with a little bit more understanding, with a little bit more learning and development, they will come through. So in the last 9 years, entering 10 years, so at the end of the season we'll be entering our 10th year, what has the Wimbledon Academy produced? I picked that one at the top, the LFA Prince of the Year award, because to us that is the most important. Of course, we're here to produce professional footballers, make debuts, but we're really big on the development of the person behind the player. So for Anthony Hartigan to win that Prince of the Year award, I think it was in 2018, to us is the biggest accolade, and it's the example we set to all boys. You know, we pride ourselves on developing players. We pride ourselves on, you know, giving them the best development program as possible. But fundamentally, it's the person behind the player that we want to develop, that we want to push forward. Because for those that don't make it, you know, they've now got to go out and succeed in other areas. And, you know, again, that will always be top of any slide that I present. And that accolade is the biggest accolade that we've ever achieved. This is only up until 2000. This was up until the end of last year. So this data is a little bit outdated. There's still a little bit more to go into this. We probably exceeded 500 first team appearances by now. But again, this is only in the last 9-10 years. And this isn't me, by the way. Nigel Higgs, Jamie Sauer, Mark Robertson, the guys in the background that people might not be aware of. So you've got Rob Toovies, the under-18s coach. And when you're the under-18s coach, you know, your face is out there a little bit more. But there's James Oliver Pierce, there's Michael Cook. There's so many good people making this happen. And we review ourselves continuously. So even in the cup final, we obviously won the last couple of minutes. Matthew Cott scored a goal. Don't ask me how he scored that. He didn't practice that, I promise. But the first thing we did when we came off the pitch is say, right, next time we get into those games, next time we get into pressurised situations, we have to perform better because we're better than that. So result aside, brilliant. We'll celebrate that. But we need to be better. I'll give you a few seconds to take this in. Whilst lockdown has had its cons, what it has given us is a bit of time to, you know, plan and try and look at where we want to go next. And myself and the guys, you know, this is what there's a lot of work that's been happening behind the scenes of where we want to be in the next 12 months, the next 3 years, the next 5 years. And ultimately, we want to be recognised and a nationally recognised development programme, not just for the player on the pitch, but the person off it. Our mission, and it's quite a big statement, but we want to produce a first team squad made year on year of at least 50% of academy graduates, which I believe is possible. If, you know, going back to what I said before, if we're a little bit more patient and a little bit more, you know, we give the boys what they need when they need it. And our objective is to maximise the potential of every person that comes through our gates. One thing that doesn't get highlighted is we have a lot of staff who have gone on to opportunities, you know, so we've got Keith McGrath, he's gone on, he's currently the sports scientist, first team sports scientist at Sheffield Wednesday. We've got Amy used to be with us, she was the physical performance coach. She's gone and now takes up the same role with Arsenal first team ladies. And, you know, there's every 6 to 12 months, I'd say, you know, we're continuously losing good quality staff due to our limitations. But what I'm saying is it's an example of the program that we put on for people. The Wimbledon way is something that we've taken a little bit of time to dissect and to build. But whether you're watching an under-9 side or an under-18 side, what should a Wimbledon side look like? And this is what we decided on. Homegrown and hungry is our tagline, and we want to make sure we produce self-managing players, self-managing athletes who take full responsibility for their own development, who embody the Wimbledon spirit, but when they get onto the pitch, they play the Wimbledon way. And below that, each department has a, you know, has a vision of how they contribute towards the overall vision of the academy. So I thought that might be insightful for some of the people who, you know, whose understanding of the academy system is a little bit less. If you've got any questions, the floor's open, nothing's off the table. But yeah, that's it for me.
Michael, thank you. That's incredibly informative and just, I mean, really inspirational to see the stuff that you're doing. I mean, I've been lucky enough to be down to go down to training a few times, and some of the things you said there just really rung true with me. And I'm going to get the game wrong, but I remember going to one of the under-18s games and they won, and I thought they played really well. And Mark Robinson was sort of talking to them as they came off the pitch, and was almost like really not impressed with them, and something, I don't know what had happened, and I was like, they've just won, they've just done really well, and you're saying, but you could have done that better, and you could have done that better, and I said to him, you're being really hard on them, and he was like, no, this is how they learn, because they're gonna take the win. And exactly what you said there about, you know, you've done something, you've taken the win, you've what's the next thing you're going to do? What can you improve on for the next thing? And that development stuff is just so important, and so and just inspirational for the boys and the girls in the academy as well. There's a couple of questions that have come in for you on the Q&A. So with regard to our academy, how much time is reasonable after a scholar stage to give a young player to develop?
Good question. I don't think there's a direct answer, because I think everyone's journey is different. But you've got to be willing to commit, I think, at least 3 to 4 years, you know, to see it through. And my analogy is, you know, it's like if you put a chicken in the oven, you don't take it out 15 minutes later and go, oh, it's not cooked, I'm going to throw this away. You know, you see it through. And it's the same with development. I think sometimes what we can do is not appreciate the process. And, you know, when there is a dip in performance or a dip in development, you know, we tend to label a player. So I would say at least you've got to be willing to give a minimum of 3 or 4 years, you know, and if it happens before that, which it will do in some cases, then that's a bonus.
Thanks. And there's a couple of questions that are quite similar around the development of you and your staff. And I've been around for a while and seen, you know, sort of so Rob Tuvey changed from being one of the younger coach, him not being a younger coach, but the younger age range coach, into now being the under 18s coach. So is there a kind of is there a development plan for you as staff?
Yes, we've got Anthony Ferguson, he's the head of coaching, so his role is to specifically develop the coaches within our program as academy management team. So, you know, as the heads of departments, I take that responsibility on, along with Michael Cook, who's the operations manager, and we consult with Anthony Ferguson, because obviously, you know, it's not always on the pitch. It might be performance analysis or someone else from a different department. So we try to, we try to, as much as possible, give people as much of a plan, because personally, everyone has their own dreams and aspirations. And, you know, in some people's cases, it might not lie in football, it might not lie in Wimbledon, it might lie beyond. So we just really try and make sure everyone has a plan for their own development. I'm a little bit fortunate because I'm a part of the Academy Managers program, which is, you know, it's basically every academy manager in the country gets specific development for their needs and wants to develop them to be a better academy manager. Alongside that, we're massive promoters of being good reflectors and to be intrinsically motivated to go and develop yourself. So, you know, myself and Mark Robinson, as an example, 2 years ago, we took ourselves to Japan, which was a massive eye-opener. And where possible, we try and give ourselves these experiences and these opportunities to learn, especially outside of football, because I find some of your best learning is taken outside of football. So to answer your question, so I've gone a long way around it, yes. But we try to pick the ownership of the staff to take on board their own development and drive it. Same way with the players, you know, take full responsibility for your own development and make it happen. Because if you want it less for yourself than others, then, you know, you're not going to get very far.
Cool, thank you. There's loads of questions coming in for you, and I'm just thinking about how we obviously we've got Rick here as well, and we've had questions sent in to us beforehand. And without putting you too much on the spot, I wonder if we do a separate session with you as a Q&A kind of thing. We take these questions away, because there's I don't know, half a dozen of them come in already, and we do a session. Xavier, what do you think? Do we carry on?
I thought a lot of that was fascinating. So I'd like to hear more, and also from other people around the academy, Michael. I think that's really it's part of this one club idea, right? That we celebrate success right across the club, not just the first team at 3 o'clock on a Saturday. And I think there's so much great stuff. I love the fact that, you know, you're pushing the Wimbledon way, what it means to be a Wimbledon player. You know, when and I know a couple of parents of academy kids, and, you know, they've just gone and beaten Chelsea, or they've just gone and beaten Derby or whatever, and their slogan being "Winners do more." and they just go and do some proper running after they've just beaten somebody. I mean, I'm a dad manager of a couple of under-16s teams, and I've learned in the last year just so much just from watching. Rob coaches a couple of my sides, and it's been a real pleasure seeing how he does it. And the boys, I've seen the boys with many coaches, but they respond so well to him and to the Wimbledon ethos. It's quite, obviously being a Wimbledon fan and seeing those boys react like that makes me incredibly proud. So I think we should hear a lot more from the academy generally. I think a separate session would be superb. I'm sure there's plenty of other stuff for you and the other guys to say. It's exciting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And ultimately, what the boys are trying to achieve in becoming a professional footballer is what millions of boys around this country are trying to achieve. So when you refer back to the Mark Robson story or Winners Do More, what we're trying to get the boys to understand is, that there is always more development to be done. That doesn't necessarily mean on the pitch. It might be in the gym, physical, working on something specific to you, and not just because Paul Pogba does it as an example. You do it because it's what you need to get to where you want to get to. It might be the holistic side, so learning new language as an example, or going out and experiencing something. So DLAG, being out in the public, putting yourself in those uncomfortable situations to develop in an area. So just to give you an example, we've been getting the boys during lockdown to host Zoom sessions with either the younger boys or external companies, external boys, external people that they don't know. Some of the prep they've been given is been limited purely because what we're trying to say is taking on board that responsibility, having to communicate in front of people, all these reflect on the pitch. You might only get 10 minutes of a debut and you have to go and perform. So we try to, in a controlled way, try to make boys as uncomfortable as possible. And sometimes it might not look like football, but it will reflect and refer back to their development and performance. We're massive on that. And that's why the Anthony Hartigan story and him winning Defence of the Year, to me, is bigger than anything we've achieved, because to win that, he had to perform on the pitch, which he made his debut at 17. You guys know the story. But away from that, his studies and his academic status at the college, which the boys attend, on point, never late. Everything was to the highest grade possible. And no matter, if he was coming back on a Tuesday night from the other side of the country, having played for the first team, on a Wednesday, he'd be in a college. There was never no problems. And that is why we promote so much. Yeah,
no, that's great. And let's be honest as well. It doesn't matter if it's Wimbledon fans or Newcastle fans or anyone else, that the reason they sing the song about one of their own is because it is important. It really does give us a massive boost when someone comes on and plays from our own academy. So it just feels like it's in really good hands. And hats off to all of you. It's really, really exciting stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. And I hope people don't feel that I'm trying to avoid questions, but that's absolutely not what we're trying to do here. Clearly there's a huge interest in the academy and what you're doing. And I think to do it justice, we would probably be better to invite you back along with, some of your colleagues, if you're up for that, and we could take that offline and we'll get the questions that have been put to you tonight. Michael, thank you so much for your time. It's incredibly insightful and always really interesting to hear what you're doing and how you do it and how it feeds the rest of the club. The other guest we've got tonight is Rick Thomas, who's the Volunteers Liaison Officer, and you will all have hopefully seen that we've done a piece of work recently on what we're calling Don's Makers. I don't know whether that's a working title or not. I keep hearing that it is and it's not, but whatever it's going to be called, how we're going to reinvigorate volunteering at the club as part of moving back to Plough Lane. Rick's joined us tonight and is working with Xav on this initiative. Xav, do you want to say a few words to start?
Yeah, no, definitely. So, but first off, we're the envy of clubs everywhere for the volunteering work that we've got going on already. So that's brilliant. when Joe talked about a volunteer project going back a few months now, and it was really properly picked up. I think it was end of November, beginning of December. One of the big things was let's now take it way beyond match day volunteers, and Rick will tell us a bit more about which other segments that we're looking at, but and he'll talk about the process and other things. But yeah, let's just say for a minute that the strategy review says we'd like to get to the championship, for example, in the midterm, right, and to become a sustainable championship club. Well, if we're going to do that, I think I'm right in saying it's the biggest loss-making league in world football. So we have to do stuff differently, and building stuff around volunteers is certainly one of our points of differences, as many people are envious of. So credit to Rick for the work done so far, and I won't say any more on this. It's over to you, Rick.
Thanks, Sav, and hello everyone. Hopefully everybody has seen and responded to the volunteer survey that's gone out. It's been an amazing response. I think it's been over 1,000 responses, which is, it's really good. I've had lots of emails sent through to me as well from people. Thank you for all of those. Hopefully I've responded to all of them. I've even had people from America saying, this is amazing, we'd love to be involved, but unfortunately, I don't think I'd be able to make the journey every day. But yeah, the sections of when I took up the role as volunteer liaison officer, I was working totally with match day. It was 3 years ago, actually, I started with a match day team, but the whole of AFC Wimbledon is all about fan base and fan involvement, and that was so evident from the very beginning. We're now looking under the Don's Makers title of there's 4 actual areas. There's community, there's football, there's match day, and there's professional. And within the survey that's gone out to people and the responses people have put in from that, hopefully those that are putting themselves forward will be able to identify from that. We're collating all this information. There's a very strong volunteer working party involved in this. There's about 7 of us. We're working around the clock on that. Sav's leading a lot of the stuff, and there's been immense support to everybody through it. We're looking at all the areas, tapping in with resources we can, outside people, to build up the whole volunteer programme, one that will be not just for the match day, which was what I was primarily involved with, but through the community, through football, looking at if there's people who've got skills. For example, earlier with Michael's, all the work Michael's teams does, if there's volunteers who could be able to give time for that. The professional side, if there's people who've got professional skills that they'd be able to give some of that towards the club to develop. And obviously with the community projects like DLAG, which has been phenomenal. I've just moved back into the area, and it's amazing seeing what is going on with DLAG and the status of the club in the areas is amazing. I was in Tooting High Street the other day, and I had a AFC Wimbledon coat on, and someone actually stopped and said, "You're linked to that DLAG, aren't you?" It was, I did step back from them because they weren't doing the social distancing. I hope they didn't mind, but it has been amazing, and the work that we've done, we've got to build on it. We're in a position now that we can. The support from the Don's Trust Board and also from the club staff, people like Mandy and David in the club, and Joe as well, has been amazing. The enthusiasm that we're taking forward on this. So I would say to all those who haven't yet filled the questionnaire in, please do so. And if if it is, if you're thinking about it, email me and ask questions. I will get back to you. We do need to take it further, but hopefully in the next few months, we will see all of this come together, the fruition of it all, and a real development.
It's really exciting, actually. I've, you know, as I say, I've been around a little while, and we've always relied on our volunteers. There's no way we could do half the stuff we've done without our volunteers. And you know, over the last, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, as we've been getting closer to get back to Power Lane, you know, we've had people concerned that they wouldn't be needed anymore as either a match day volunteer or as a club volunteer or as a trust volunteer, and would, you know, is everything going to go professional, i.e. outsourced external services that we're paying for? And I'm, you know, I'm over the moon that we're enhancing the offer for volunteers, both the number that we need, but also the offer we give to them. And when we made little steps in that with the volunteers charter and making sure that people were treated properly, and that, you know, just saying thank you to people and all of that kind of thing. And it you know, our club has been built on the work of incredible people from the start that you know have volunteered their time. And I know that, you know, some people feel that they volunteering is not right for them right now, but they won't be available in the future. I mean, I didn't volunteer for a number of years when my children were little, and it's got to be at the right time for you. And there's no kind of upper or lower amount of time that you have to give. You know, it's what. But professional, you know, going into the professional services, we're all, you know, we all work and we're all professional people in our professional lives, and actually tapping into those skills within our own fan base to achieve the things we want to achieve, it will just be a massive step for us in being able to achieve so much more.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it has been. And but one thing I'll say, in the 3 years I've been doing it, I've met so many more people at the club and made really good friends, and seen, you know, and seen the way that people across the board have all come together. And the one thing I will say is that far from us diminishing the roles of volunteers, we're actually expanding it and needing it all. The team leaders who I work with for match day, I've been in communication with them throughout the whole of the lockdown period. It has been a very weird time for us all, not being able to go to a game on a Saturday and midweek and meet up. And for all the volunteers who do that, I know for lots of them it's a very important part of their life, and it's something that we want to continue doing it, and we will continue doing it, and we will develop and encourage. And we want more volunteers, we don't want less, and we want more from all ages as well. We want younger and older. We really do want that. There's so many exciting projects that's coming up over the next few months, and whenever we are back at Plough Lane for the match day side of it, people will see how much the volunteers role has and will develop for that. And the work we're doing with the other ones within our working group, the people we're making links with, that Zav's made links with, Jane and other people have come to me with this, and I am really infused by it. It's something that actually I'm enjoying more doing this than I am my daytime job, which is unusual.
The thing you just said there about youngsters actually, you know, really hit home for me, because lots of you know that I've got a 20-year-old and a 16-year-old, and my 16-year-old volunteers with the foundation. He wants to go into coaching when he's older, and he's done his level 1 coaching stuff, which he's had to do online this year. And he coaches on or helps coach on a Saturday morning at Wimbledon Park with the foundation. And they were offering a great thing for him the other week. He got an email. It doesn't check his email. Had to make sure he checked his email. But he checked his email, and he'd got an invitation to join. I'm going to get this wrong, Don's Intern, I think they were calling it, where they were offering sort of, you know, some training for him about how sort of first steps in refereeing, and kind of expanding his development as part of his volunteering. And I just thought that was phenomenal. As a you know, he helps out on a Saturday morning, he volunteers to do it, he wants to do it, he enjoys it, and actually what he's getting back is developing him further. And the wording in the email and that was really lovely about, you know, wanting him to meet up with the people that he would normally coach with on a Saturday morning, who he hasn't seen for months because of the lockdown and everything. And he was like, oh, I don't know whether I want to do it, you know, classic 16-year-old. And then when he came off the Zoom call, was like, actually, I've really enjoyed that. It was really nice to see people that were there and actually learn something. And they had a lady referee there, and they were being asked to decide whether the incidents that they were shown on video were, you know, an incident. But it was really interesting to see that what you can give back to your volunteers, as well as what clearly we all want from them as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, this is something that we are going to be looking at. There's a whole, we're offering mentoring. We're wanting to set up mentoring for the volunteers in all the 4 categories. We're looking at CPD, career professional development, a way for volunteers to be able to use the experiences they get from us, working with us to, if they're applying for either jobs, vocational training, or university. People coming on via different Duke of Edinburgh Awards, schemes like that. We want to get involved with all of this and really develop that across the board.
I think Rick, yeah, it's hugely positive, and I think we want to, if we're doing this like every other area of this football club, we're gonna try and be the absolute best at it. So one of our targets is literally going to be to go and win awards, show off our volunteering program, be the very best out there, and I think we're definitely going in the right direction to do that.
Oh, we are. I mean, the skills audit we get from this, it will come back. We've got the people here, and we just they want to get involved as well, which is brilliant as well. That's the main thing. People do want to be volunteers and be involved with their club. They don't just want to be turning up on a Saturday, watching the game and either celebrating or mumbling or on the way home. They actually do want to be part of the whole of the AFC Wimbledon project, the whole of what we are all about. Yeah,
totally.
It's really great. Thanks ever so much, Rick, for giving up your time this evening. If you want to get in touch with Rick, his email is volunteerofficer@afcwimbledon.limited.uk, ltd.uk. So volunteerofficer@afcwimbledon.ltd.uk. And there'll be, I'm sure there'll be many more comms about that volunteering thing. There was mention in that, which I was going to segue nicely into, and now I've lost my track on what it was. Apologies, I can't think. Rick said something and I thought, oh yeah, we could segue into that, and now I've forgotten what it was. But we have had a number of questions about the stadium and where we are with the stadium and what we're doing with the stadium, and some of the stuff around that. So we'll take a couple of the questions that we had in beforehand, and if there's anything else you want to raise, stick it into the Q&A. So we've had a question about can the board please explain, this is from Kieran McGowan, can the board please explain if any arrangements are in place to name a part of Plough Lane in honour of Dickie Guy? I appreciate sponsorship deals will involve naming rights on most stands. Perhaps a lounge or general meeting room could be named in his honour. This unassuming man epitomises all that is great about the club's great history. Xav, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so there's a group, another group that's been set up, that's a kind of honours steering group that will be looking at all sorts of things like this. It's being headed by Luke McKenzie from the Dons Trust Board. So I think you'll be hearing about that more later. But yeah, definitely plans afoot to properly honour those true heroes.
Fab. And that's really exciting, actually. There's so much good work gone on, and we haven't recognised our, we're talking about volunteers then, some of our volunteers as well, and they'll be picked up as part of that honours committee. Andrew Ramsden asks, now that the stadium has been completed to the current stage, I'd like to see a video tour of the stadium, especially in the West Stand building, so fans can appreciate their investment. Also, with regard to the cardboard fans in the North Stand, it would be good to have comprehensive footage or video so each fan who contributed can see their cutout. All we have is a few random shots. Can you influence both, please? So I'll just say, you know, I'm aware that there's plans for a video, certainly, of the stadium. We're doing that as part of, it's for everybody, but we're actually making sure that it's part of our diversity and inclusion agenda as well. And so it will certainly, you know, show you the stand. We realise that not being able to go there at the moment is just, you know, heartbreaking for us all. We've built this fantastic stadium and we just can't see it. I haven't been there for weeks and weeks, and you know, the photos that you see online just don't give you what it is. And Joe has told us that he's talking to a drone company at the moment to see if it's possible to get inside the stadium so we can actually see it that way as well. And we'll hope to get something up very, you know, as part of the handover, but we'll definitely do something like that. And then another question is around the parking around the stadium, from Mike Terrier, which says, please could you tell me if anyone at the club has approached local businesses to see if club supporters can use their parking on match day evenings for fee? When I filled out the survey, lack of car parking news deterred me a bit from helping out. Thanks for your help. Sav, do you want to have a go?
Yeah, so certainly the club has been speaking to companies down by Plough Lane that have got land for parking, and there are some positive developments on that, with the focus being on disabled supporters, but also for players and VIPs and people that really do need to be near the ground. And then we're also hearing, or the club's also hearing, that there are some there are some of the companies who are looking at doing things privately. It's all got to be balanced with, you know, we don't want to clog up the roads, so we'll be looking at park and ride and other things. But yeah, there's definitely moves on parking that sound positive.
And I guess the other thing, just to add to that, is that when we put the planning application, I'll do my politically correct bit now. When we put the planning application in, one of the big wins around the planning application about where the stadium is situated is the public transport around there. You know, there's different train lines, tram lines, tube lines, buses, all within, you know, a reasonable distance. And while I know that it's not suitable for everybody to use that, we would encourage as many people as possible to use public transport when we can. And the other thing is that, you know, the number of away games that I've been to and driven to, there are always local schools and local businesses that are very happy to take a £5 off you to park on their playground or on their foreground or whatever. So I'm sure that even if we haven't done a specific deal with a company, that there will be people that will be utilising that opportunity. Another question we've had is from Colin Shergold around ownership. And he says, currently it takes 75% of members to vote in favour of restricted action and 50% of members to vote, I believe, for a motion to be carried. I'm aware that a group of fans, including at least one Dons Trust board member, want to raise the threshold above 75% for us to be able to sell majority control of the club at any point in the future. Would you like to see the 75% threshold increase? And if so, to what level? Or do you think it should stay at 75% or even decrease? And so I've already answered this question. The board prior to December all answered pretty much this question back in August last year, and that's available on the Dons Trust website. What I said at that point, and what I will say now as well, because I haven't changed my view, is that I've heard members debate about whether we should go below 75%. And potentially adopt the 50.1%, which is the German model, or is known as the German model. We need to look at that really, really seriously, because we actually lose quite a lot of things by going below 75%. And members would need to understand that and vote on that, and ultimately it'll be members who decide. We're just voted to represent the majority view of members. But some of the things that you would lose are in the Articles of Association. So you'd lose things like issuing new shares, borrowing over 100,000, creating a mortgage or a charge, selling the ground or group company, and selling a substantial part of the business. So you'd lose the opportunity to do those things if you went below that. And so my view is that 75% is about the right thing. The other thing to say is that actually there's different levels depending on restricted actions, and a part of the strategy review that will no doubt result in a constitution review, and we could look at all of that as part of that as well. Xav, what's your take?
I've got an open mind at the minute, as long as fan ownership is completely enshrined. It's a non-negotiable, it's not on the table whatsoever. Then we also need to be set up to be able to receive money if that's what we need to do, and that's what we want to do. So I've got an open mind to look at the various structures that are being proposed, that are going to be proposed during the structural review. I'm convinced that we've got, again, very good people looking at this. So yeah, I'll let the process take its course.
Cool, thank you. We've had a question from Devlin Hitch, which is about Cedars investment and the rewards around that. My family put in money with me to buy shares. I understand my name will be on the investor wall at Plough Lane, but I was under the impression that we would have the opportunity to have a plaque of which I wanted to have my granddad's name. He was a Wimbledon fan but passed away 35 years ago. Is this still going to be possible? And so just to say, we've been in touch with the people who are the volunteers who are helping with sorting out all the rewards. They've basically said everyone who invested in the original Cedars scheme will get all of the perks they're entitled to. The investor wall was the first thing as that, because that is actually everybody A to Z on a wall, and that doesn't matter how much they invested, whether it was £10 or whether it was £100,000. And all of those have to be produced in one go. And then over the coming weeks, the team will be in touch about the details for the steps and the plaques and any other perks. And then we'll begin on getting those produced. There has been a delay because of COVID. The pandemic has slowed things down because of the suppliers. They haven't been able to come to the stadio and measure up and get the things that they need to be able to then put the stuff on that we need. We know that not everyone is able to go to Plough Lane at the moment on a match day or on a match day. And so there is a plan to film and photograph all of the installations over time and make those available online. So, you know, overseas investors and overseas people who contributed into Cedars, their thing will be put up and they will be able to see it online as well. I think there was one other. A question around Broncos, Zav. London Broncos recently agreed a deal to train at Rosslyn Park Rugby Club. Are they still keen to ground share with us at Plough Lane? And if so, will it be put to a vote for Don's Trust members?
Yeah, absolutely. They still are committed to ground sharing with us, and it absolutely will be going to a vote. Yeah, as we said would happen, and I believe planning is going in shortly, formal planning on that, to ensure that we're allowed to do it if the fans are happy for us to do it. So yeah, they're still very keen.
And then there's a couple of questions that have come in live. I know it can't be done in lockdown, but is a test event planned so that supporters can attend matches as soon as allowed? So there has to be test events before we can allow crowds back in. There has to be test events, obviously we don't know when we're going to be able to open the ground, let alone have the test events to do that. And I can only talk about what was planned when we were in lockdown, as it was when we were going to do it, when we thought that we would be able to put we'd be able to have a few fans there and under the tier system, which is clearly not happening at the moment. And that was, some of the test events would be around having potentially a youth game there with a number of people, probably the builders and stuff first, because the test events are all about testing the safety of the ground, if you like, being able to get out of the ground quickly should there be an incident, and that's why that's the point of the test events, to get your safety certificate signed off, and then of course once we can get fans in, we will absolutely doing that. And I think Joe said in his last either meet the CEO or an event similar to this, or it could have been the AGM, he talked about, you know, utilising the pub space and doing tours even before we can open the ground, as it were, if we're able to do that. So we are still keeping all of those options on the table. Have I missed anything on that, Zav?
Don't think so.
Okay, good. Then we've got a question from Andy Ramsden. Will there be a secure bike rack at the ground? I think the answer is yes to that.
Yeah, I've heard something on that, but we can ask that question. But I've definitely heard it mentioned.
We'll take that away and come back to you, because I'm sure that we have heard that, but I haven't seen it, if that makes sense. But then I haven't seen quite a lot to do with that. Then Brenda Hawkins says, my partner and I are not disabled but have mobility issues. As we'd like to drive from Eastbourne, it would be good to know there will be a parking place on arrival. So we talked a bit about parking earlier. So we are doing some deals with local companies for disabled parking, and I note that you say that you're not disabled but have mobility issues. And as I say, whenever we've been to an away ground, there has always been spaces local, schools and what have you, and there are schools in that area and there are local businesses. It's you know, it's basically on an industrial estate, and most of the businesses don't open on a Saturday. So whilst we can't guarantee it, then I would strongly say that there will be. The other thing, of course, is that there's these parking apps these days where, you know, Find My Parking Space, where residents rent out their driveways and stuff. So I'm sure you could utilize that kind of thing, Brenda, in advance to, you know, to absolutely secure that you've got a parking place on arrival, that you do it sort of independently with one of these parking apps, and I can't remember the names of them, but my brother-in-law uses them all the time when we go away. You literally book the space on the app, and it's there, and you pay on the app and stuff. So it's you know, everyday people giving up their own space and charging for it. One for you, Zav. As we are likely to attend next to no events, could non-refundable season ticket holders be invited to a special stadium event tour open day in the late summer or something ASAP?
Yeah, and I think, look, we can't speak for the club on that, but I think that is, again, very much being looked at, and I heard it discussed as recently as last week. Cool,
thank you. When will we get a vote on the London Broncos ground share take place? So I think we talked about that earlier, which was there's some sequencing to be done around the planning application goes in first, and then it comes, we've done the temperature test, and then it goes out to members. That the ordering? You're on mute.
I think so, Jane. Yeah, we've done the temperature test.
Then the planning application is next, and then it's the members. But Tim, I don't think we can actually give you a when will the vote take place, because it will be dependent on the planning application. And you may well remember the planning around actually getting the stadium. Whilst we don't think that will be anywhere near as bad this time around, because it's an amendment application rather than a proper planning application. But it's not in our hands to determine. It's with Merton Council, and so it'll be when they put it on their agenda and when it goes through. Stuart Deakin says, any news on the projection on the big wall? Trying to think what we heard last on that. So Joe has said that we absolutely want to utilise that wall. We obviously can't, it's not our wall, and so obviously we can't put things on it, but we can project things on it.
And I think that was that was agreed to by Galliard, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
I don't quite understand how that's going to work during.
It would work for night games, wouldn't it? I mean, we could do great things with it for night games, and when certain clubs come and visit, we can put things on the wall, which would be lovely. But I don't know about I don't know how it would work for in daylight and in the summer. And not my problem. It will be somebody techie that can sort that. So then we've got 3. I'm conscious of time. It's 8:45. I think we've got 3 more questions. If we do those 3, which is Dominic Tumer says the stadium is an embodiment of the fans' effort to retain fan ownership. Will we see visible promotion of our fan ownership status at the stadium? Say it loud and proud.
Oh, we've got to, haven't we? And Dom, yeah, we've absolutely got to. I don't know what the plans are, but it has to be very, very visible throughout. So, yeah.
It's it's part of who we are and what we are, isn't it? And so yeah, we should absolutely make sure that that's promoted around. Joe mentioned, this is Gary Jordan. Joe mentioned last week on his video message that handover is imminent. When that's done,
I've got to leave for 2 minutes. I've just had a bit of a family emergency with the puppy.
No, go. It's fine. Right. So Gary Jordan, Joe mentioned last week on his video message that handover is imminent. When that's done, how much work is there left to finish off inside the stadium? So there is quite a lot of work still to do inside the stadium, and which is why we think it'd be really helpful to get this video out. I haven't been there for a number of weeks, so I can't actually tell you exactly how much work. But there's some good sites. There's an Instagram site, Wimbledon Plough Lane Stadium or something it's called, and that's got some really good pictures on it, and that shows you. So there's lots of kitting out to do. There's still lots of decoration to do. We're getting, a kind of empty shell, and we've got to make it home and decorate it all and stuff. So there is still quite a lot of stuff to do. Then we've got Graham Philpott. Does the club have a commercial strategy in terms of how to grow revenue and intended targets over the next 3, 5, 10 years? If so, is it linked to the sporting success or independent from it? Sorry if it's a silly question. Not a silly question at all, Graham. There's a business plan, and that's being worked on at the moment for how we can. And I think we've all heard it said sweat the asset. There is a group of people looking at that at the moment about how we can get the best return from the stadium that we've got, recognizing that we're in a COVID environment at the moment where we can't do stuff. We're not allowed fans in at the moment, and so it's being adapted and tweaked, but it will be, and it is exactly as you say, sort of 3, 5, 10 year strategy on how we sweat that asset and the things that we want to get out of that stadium. We've got there's no denying we've got a massive debt around our necks, and we talked about the refinancing committee earlier, and that work will link in with this as well. Is Puppy okay?
Yeah, it just fell through a very small gap into a kind of light well that we've got, and we think it's dislocated or broken something. So we just got to get it.
Oh God! Do you need to go?
No, I'm okay. It sounded like a firework, but it was the dog screaming through the thing. So anyway, sorry.
Oh bless. I hope he's all right.
Yeah.
We're on the last question. Any progress on the mediation process with the team in Buckinghamshire? Appreciate it is confidential. So, and there's your answer. And it's just disappeared from my screen, and I've forgotten who posted it. I think it was Michael. So there's your answer. It unfortunately is confidential. There is things going on in the background that we can't talk about, unfortunately. But we are, we want to get to a place where nobody is really, really angry with each other on match days, essentially. I won't say their name, you won't say their name. There's obviously things that we're never going to be able to heal over. But from a professional club point of view, we need this mediation so that we can both put a line in the sand and carry on. Xav, anything on that?
I'm not very good at being diplomatic on that subject, so I'm going to keep quiet.
And that's why I won't ever go to a game that involves them, because I just don't know what might come out of my mouth, and I kind of feel that I need to not ever put myself in that situation. We've done all the questions that we said we would do. Oh, there's one more come in. Go on, Andy, we'll let you get it. Do you know who won the pub tender? No, not yet. It's the heads of terms, or that's not the phraseology. The contract is being looked at with lawyers at the moment, and so nothing has been signed yet as far as the pub tender is concerned. But I'm sure when there is news to tell. One of the things that I don't know whether we said right at the very beginning was this board is completely is much enthused and has big aspirations, and one of those is around comms and getting more comms out more frequently, and so when there is news to tell, then we will be saying news, and on that note, Xav, you're going to be saying something, aren't you, soon, or have I missed it today?
Yeah. No, hopefully tomorrow. Just recorded some words about a lot of the stuff that's going on for the people who couldn't make tonight, and so yeah, hopefully tomorrow or the day after.
So Zav's putting out a little video, sort of on the back of the Joe video, sort of the trust take on the world at the moment, and I think that's it. We've had huge numbers tonight, and over 80, nearly 100 people have stayed. So thank you so much for listening in tonight. I'd like to thank George and Graham and Hannah, who are all in the background that you won't have seen tonight. Special thanks to Michael Hamilton and to Rick Thomas for joining us and giving up their evening. Really appreciate what they've done, and we will definitely put in another slot with Michael and the academy team, because they do phenomenal work, and there's lots of questions that we weren't able to answer. And then I've got one little bit of exclusive information for you, which is that the club has secured disability confidence status, and we're really proud of that. We will put some comms out around that, but that's a really good achievement for the club in being an inclusive club and the type of club that we want to be. There's some I know what I was going to segue into. You talking about DLAG and your awards earlier, and it's all come back to me now. The Football Supporters Association run awards every year, and we've always been a bit sort of reticent about putting ourselves forward, but we're not anymore, and we're going to put ourselves forward for 3 awards this year. We've no idea whether we'll do any good with them or not, but we'll give it a good shot. So we're going to be putting in for Community Club of the Year, I think. Something around, and I can't remember the title of it, but it's something around, and that will obviously be the work that DLAG have done, something around the media for our fans, and we're going to be talking about, or putting ourselves forward for the nomination for that, for the hosting of Plough Lane Live, the night that Plough Lane opened, because when you think about that, it's 30 years since, or wasn't it very nearly 30 years since we'd had a home game, and the people who were supposed to be there and deserved to be there more than anybody else weren't allowed to be there because of the current state of the world. And so we did, rather than just do iFollow, we did the 2-hour pre-show with special guests and what have you, and so we're gonna, about how we engaged our fans in such a phenomenal moment in time for us as a club. And then the final one is the Fans for Diversity Award, and we're going to talk about all of the work that we've done with the Kick It Out campaign back in, it's like January last year, and the Women at the Game events that we've run, and the abuse posters we've done, and then most recently the launch of Dons for Diversity, which are all kind of things that we've done in that arena. So fingers crossed, everybody, that we get some recognition from the FSA in those. I can't remember when the awards are. It's in March, I think, but we have to put in nominations in the next week. And as always, if you've got any feedback on tonight, how it's worked, things that you'd like to see, things that you wouldn't like to see, that would be fantastic. And you can email any of the board, firstname.surname@thedonstrust.org. And then finally, we have got the next one of these will be in the last week of February, I believe, and that will be hosted by Charlie, who's the vice chair, and Niall Cooper, who's one of the new board members who was elected in December. Thanks ever so much, everybody, for joining us. It's really nice to see you all, even if it's remotely and virtually, and really hope to see you at a game soon when we're allowed back in. Sav?
No, thanks everybody. It's been really good. Some really good questions in there, and yeah, we just want to communicate way more than we might have done in the past. So yeah, help us, guide us, tell us what you'd like to see more or less of, and we'll do our best. Thanks everyone.